one day when my eldest daughter, she was 8 or 9 years old, she suddenly said, "Oh, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a housewife." I was wondering, with watching me work every day, why didn't she think that she also wanted to have a career? And she said, well, so that when my children comes home from work, I can actually pay attention to them.
Each new level of success usually is asking some kind of sacrifice. I'm also coming from a difficult background, so in my early age, I've been resentful towards people from more developed countries. But then you also grow up, you also understand that often people from so-called lesser developed countries, often they're actually happier because you have less to worry about. Life is simpler.
And you have your family around you.
Exactly. If your parents are building a nursing home and you're a child, you see a lot of older people.
Yes.
Many of them are passing.
I think what that really taught me is that human life is so transient.
Welcome to YanaTV, a safe space for women to have deep conversations. My guest is Yuying, founder and CEO of SOL, powering IT management for thousands of users across Asia and beyond. She's also a former lawyer and an investor. From advising on billion-dollar IPOs to building a tech company from scratch, Yuying's path has been anything but linear. But what draws me to her, it's not the scale of her success, but more the quiet courage behind it. Yuying, welcome to YanaTV.
Thank you, Yana.
Let's start with questions that people usually don't dare to ask. What is one truth about being a powerful woman that you wish more people understood?
Well, I think that for Dad, like any woman in a position of power, like any other women in the world, actually has two jobs, right? So one job is the job that they're actually holding, whether it's building a company or being an executive, and the other job is like with their household. So what they're managing at home with their families and so on. Future employers might be thinking, can this lady actually do well in her role if she has all these like family commitments on? I think especially for women of like childbearing age, for instance. But I would put it to people that actually being able to manage and juggle these two very heavy responsibilities makes a woman a much better leader and a much better manager, right? And, it's because they have to ruthlessly prioritize and, things like their energy, where do they spend their time and so on. And these are skills that they learn, knowledge that also translates very well into becoming a leader.
What was the last time you did something that surprised you?
Probably when I was in South Africa. So I was on a holiday, and at the spur of the moment, I decided to go shark cage diving. So this is where they lower a cage into the waters. And, South Africa is full of very large sharks, so great white sharks. And, they put chum into the water and the sharks would swim by. So spur of the moment, when I was whale watching on a boat, decided to do shark cage diving as well. And that was like one of the best moments of my life. Have always been very fascinated by sharks, but when I actually saw like this really big female great white shark just swim by, it really taught me that, humans, we are not at the pinnacle of the natural world, right? Wow. And it made me feel very humble to be a human being.
I mean, I love nature, but I think I would be very scared to swim with sharks, even in the cage. I mean, I heard about those stories. I think it is very, very brave of you to do it.
Now, the cage had very small bars. I made sure of that.
What is one personal dream that you had to quietly let go because it did not fit your definition of success?
I think maybe that is probably when I met Bernard, my husband. I had just completed my MBA at INSEAD, and I actually had accepted a job offer in China. It was always my dream to go to China to work. I've been working in Hong Kong for a couple of years, but only had very short stints in China. So I was going to help a US company set up their first overseas operations in China. It was a great opportunity. But then, he told me that if I did that, he would sell his startup, quit his startup and follow me to China. And that was when I realized that I couldn't be responsible for what this man decided to do with the rest of his life, and decided to then stay here in Singapore instead.
Wow, what a commitment also from his side, willing to do that. I mean, that's choosing love over many other things. If fulfillment had a voice. What do you think it has been trying to tell you for many years now?
I would say that it is probably trying to tell me that, it's all around us, that fulfillment is actually all around us. And what we probably have to do is to slow down, our pace of doing things and take the time to be in the present, right? So whether that is like being in the same room as your children or, going out on a date night with your husband or being in a very nice gathering with friends, that you can actually be happy in the moment and you don't have to keep thinking that you can only be happy in the future when some certain things were to happen.
Wow, very wise. What is the most rebellious act of self-love you have done recently?
I would say would be recently, 6 months ago, I started strength training, really going to the gym, lifting weights and so on. And that has been transformational for me, like on a kind of mental as well as like at a physical kind of level. So not exactly rebellious, but, I take almost 6 to 8 hours per week to do exercises. So it is time away from time that I could otherwise be spending with my kids, my family, or my work.
Sounds very rebellious to me because you prioritize me time, which I think is very important. and they do talk about strength training. Yeah, I think especially like women after 40, they say it's really important for the longevity and health. Yeah, I'm also doing that. If you could send a voice note to a very ambitious young woman in Asia, what would you say under 10 seconds to her?
I do meet a lot of young women executives, young women entrepreneurs, and they often come to me for advice because I've walked through this path before. And one of the big questions that they have is always, when is the right time for me to start a family?
That's a brilliant question.
Yes, right. For them, it's a dilemma because if they were to do it now, they lose time in getting on with their careers or they're worried about what investors might think about them. If they do it later, there's always a biological ticking clock. And what I always tell them is that, there is no better time than now, right? There is never a right time. So just do it when you feel that you should do it.
So you made it. You made it through the longest fireside chat. I'm curious about your forming years. Like what shaped you in your early years to be the person that you are today?
As a young kid, I experienced quite a bit of failure. So although I did quite well at school, but there were incidences that happened which I think taught me that failure wasn't actually something that was that bad, right? So I had things like I actually missed one of my O-level papers. I forgot that it was in the morning. I thought it was in the afternoon and I actually missed it. The principal called me and I didn't get a passing mark for that paper, right, to say. But, nothing happened after that. So I was like, okay, even a failure that big, didn't really, change the trajectory of my life. And that taught me that, these kind of things, if they were to happen, that's okay. We just move on. I think another big factor that formed who I am was my parents, right, are my parents. So basically, they are entrepreneurs. They build up like a nursing home chain here in Singapore. And they involved me quite closely with what they were going through when they were building it. So I saw it evolve from like a tiny, like one level kind of nursing home in Changi. Saw how they brought in the first customers, dealt with them, how they had like so much ethics in building up the business and eventually built something very sustainable over 20 years. So that taught me that building a business is actually something that's not easy, but if you have the right attitude towards it and you were to persevere, you eventually get there one day.
I think it's very interesting if your parents are building a nursing home and you're a child because you see a lot of older people.
Yes.
Many of them are passing in those nursing homes and you're just kind of starting your life. So I'm just curious, how did that impact you?
Yeah, so actually one of the first residents of the nursing home was my own grandmother. Right, so she was having dementia at a point in time, and I think that was a big reason why my parents actually started the nursing home. They couldn't find the proper care, that they wanted her to have. And it wasn't just elderly people, it was also like adults with Down syndrome or other kind of needs for which they require care as well. But I think what that really taught me is that human life is so transient, right? We go through life, I think all of us at a fundamental level almost feel that we can live forever, but everyone gets to a certain point in time where they start facing their own mortality, right? So it brings me back a lot to the present. Like, what actually do I want to do with my life now? Such that when I do get to that stage, I feel like I have as little regrets as possible. So regret minimization, right, is one of the things that I've learned from it.
I know you have been trained as a lawyer, so I can
Yes.
see you're very precise when you have to be. And you lived in Hong Kong and London, right?
Yes.
And then later you built a startup in ergonomics and then your
Yes.
own IT platform. So it has been a lot of career change also
Yes.
across industries.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, so what pushed you to keep exploring new industries instead of just staying in a safe, stable, comfortable, convenient space?
I think it's really about finding fulfillment, like for myself. I do want to feel like I have a purpose in life that goes beyond just earning money or, just feeding the family and all that. When I was younger, I was actually volunteering with street children in Nepal. I was teaching English and mathematics to them for a couple of months. And it always struck me at the point in time how fortunate we were in Singapore and how, a really brilliant young kid in Nepal, Kathmandu, didn't have as many opportunities as we did. I saw some kids as young as 12, being sent to, learn weaving instead of going to a proper school because their parents couldn't afford it and they wanted them to earn money, right, as early as possible. So it made me feel that really we have talented people everywhere, but not enough opportunities. And yeah, I think that for those years that I was exploring, I was always trying to find, what is it that could actually link back to this thing that I believed in, right? Which is that opportunity should be divided more equally among the different people in the world.
I'm definitely with you on that. I'm a very big into equal opportunities because I'm also coming from a difficult background. So I definitely in my early age have been resentful towards people from more developed countries even. How come that, where I'm born and the passport I have, I don't have opportunities. But then you also grow up, you travel, your worldview expands and you also understand that the ironical part. It's not like the grass is always greener on the other side, but each country or each place has their own difficulties and challenges.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Actually, the surprising truths and statistics about it, often people from so-called lesser developed countries, often they're actually happier.
Yes, on a more fundamental level.
On a more fundamental level, because you have less to worry about, you have less possessions, you don't, life is simpler.
And you have your family around you.
Exactly. Yes. Usually, I think the more evolved and sort of developed, industrially, the country is, then unfortunately people tend to have less connection with the family. They create family less. They have less kids. So, and then it just becomes more lonelier. So each new level of success usually is asking something of us, some kind of sacrifice, usually.
Yes.
So I'm just curious for you, as you were sort of upgrading your life and your career, what did it cost you personally?
So I think one of the things for me, as a working mom, you're a working mom as well, you would understand is a bit of mom's guilt.
Break my heart every time.
Yeah, so for our entire team, we're fully remote, which means I work from home. So I have a home office and, it has a door, right, which I close, I lock. But that also means that when my kids come home from work, they see their mom at home. They come in, they want to interact with their mom, but then the mom's not available because I'm on a conference call, something like that. So I think what really opened my eyes to this was one day when my eldest daughter, I think she was in primary 2, primary 3, that's about 8 or 9 years old. She came up to me and she suddenly said, "Oh, Mom, when I grow up, I know what I want to be." And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And she said, "I want to be a housewife." And I was like, that's a great
deep breath.
ambition to have. But I was wondering okay, with watching me work every day, why didn't she think that she also wanted to work or have a career? And so I was like, okay, why do you want to do that? And she said, well, so that when my children comes home from work, I can actually pay attention to them. I mean, I laughed, obviously.
And cried quietly.
And cried
at
the same
it's
time.
Heartbreaking.
Yes.
It is heartbreaking. Well, since we are on this topic about children and working
Yes.
moms, and you are also CEO of the company, so what did motherhood taught you about leadership, and what has leadership taught you about being a mother?
I think that both of them are quite similar
Okay.
in a way. Or rather, I treat my children, the same, like in a similar way that I would treat my employees. I give them leeway, right? Which means to say that they have my trust. The second thing is like independence. So I want my kids to be independent, and that's also what I train them for as well. And, same thing also for management. Like I believe that people who have a feel of ownership over their roles and over the company do much better within the company as opposed to people who are looking for instructions all the time.
Did you ever feel alone at the top? And if yes, how did you process that and dealt with that?
Yes, I would say that I have been quite fortunate in that sense. So Bernard, my husband, he is also an entrepreneur as well, and he has a lot of experience with startups. So I often turn to him, like whenever I have any questions that has been going on in my head. And of course, there have been a lot of questions because I'm here as a solo founder. Another thing that I found helpful is getting involved with communities with other entrepreneurs as well. So I've been part of like communities with other entrepreneurs where we run things called forums. And this is basically almost like a self-coaching session where you have 7 to 8 entrepreneurs get together, share experiences.
It's like a mastermind. Fundamentally,
Something like
right?
that.
Yes.
Yes, and that was very helpful because everyone is at different stages and they may have gone through experiences which you're now experiencing.
In your work, you are in tech and cybersecurity and
Yes.
IT, and so it's historically has been a very male-dominated world. So as a woman, have you ever felt that you have to prove yourself, that you have to assert yourself kind of twice or 3 times or 4 times before you actually your voice is heard and before people believe your idea?
So specifically with our client base and with our employees and our partners, I have been very fortunate that I haven't actually experienced that. My clients in this area, like people that I deal with, heads of IT, CTOs, they are actually all really nice people. Like once they trust you and once you trust them, the relationship goes on very well. So there is very little things that are being held back in the relationships. Very different from the time when I was a lawyer. Right.
Interesting.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, because it's part of the work that I do is just working with people and especially with women, with successful women, and helping them to kind of align the life, especially in the relationships, the fulfillment and the way how they really want to have it. And what I know about how the world works, that usually what we have inside is what we're experiencing outside of us. And so to me also, like when I'm listening to you, you just come across as a being like very kind, very humble, very, very easy to be with person, very understanding. So I'm actually not surprised that you felt, even as a woman in a male-dominated industry, that there was no problems.
Yeah, but I would say it has been, it's a different experience as compared to the time when I was a lawyer because I was doing corporate law, right? And, people were... I think it was just like different when you operate in professional services as compared to what I'm doing now, where we are operating in IT, and people are just very straightforward with how things work.
Isn't it interesting when we think about just IT? Because I also interviewed quite a few like AI experts and just IT people, and like before I always thought maybe they're not very human. I don't know, like IT, it's numbers, it is algorithm, but actually, to my greatest surprise and in my experience, some of the most kindest, more sort of, heart-centered, more into the human connection people are from IT.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to now ask a question that might be a bit tougher and a bit more personal. Tell me about a moment in your life when you truly broke your heart or something or someone broke your heart, personally or professionally, and how that experience transformed you and made you the person that you are today.
I mean, to a certain extent, what I mentioned to you from my daughter.
Yes, this is I find it heartbreaking.
It was a bit heartbreaking to me, but I also found it amusing as well. And I was like, oh, not bad. Like a 8 or 9-year-old kid can actually think of something that clever to say. So I try not to have like unrealistic expectations of people or of situations. I guess I'm one of those people who like under-promise and over-deliver. And maybe I also do that like internally to myself as well. And I think that I'm, you know the philosophy Stoicism?
Yes, Stoicism.
So I think that, fundamentally, I'm a bit like that as a person, right? I take things as they come and I just go on with it. And, I don't try to make assumptions about how things would turn out. And I deal with the situations as they come in. Of course, I try to anticipate things, but I just deal with it in a very like a step-by-step process as it comes in.
Interesting. My son actually, who is now 21, also refers to Stoicism a lot. That has been also his philosophy. Well, since we are sort of on the logic and emotions, a big part of your training is about logic and data, right? Law, IT, tech,
Yes.
it is sort of just being precise, being very specific.
Yes.
But then at the same time, when you create your own business and you run your own company, it has a lot to do with your gut instinct and intuition.
Yes.
Because it's not always logical decision.
Yes.
So how do you balance that? Like, how do you balance logic and intuition when you make your decisions?
When I started out as an entrepreneur and I was making decisions, it was a lot of different spreadsheets, right? A lot of research, a lot of agonizing what colors should the website be. And then as time went on and I gained more experience as an entrepreneur, I realized that nobody cares. Like nobody really cares. Like whether your logo is like circular or whether it's square and so on. If you look at Jeff Bezos, he talks about like the one-way door and two-way door kind of problems, right? So is it a one-way door? You make a decision and you cannot go back. Or is it a two-way door where you can make a decision and you can reverse it, not too difficult in the future? So whenever it's a one-way door, very important decisions, that's when I go into logic and I go into data and I really do my analysis before making a decision, getting the team in to make the decision with me. But if it's a reversible decision or if it's a decision that's not important for the stage of the company that I'm at, I can delegate it to someone else or, just make a decision and always knowing that if it doesn't turn out right, we can always go back in the future.
Wow, I love this. What does happiness mean to you?
I think for me, like happiness a lot revolves around the family, right? So my kids, my husband, my parents, and my siblings, whether or not they are also similarly happy and fulfilled in their lives, and whether, I'm also finding fulfillment in what I do as well. One thing that I've read up a lot on recently is also the kind of feeling that you need to be present, right, in the present moment. I'm someone who loves planning ahead. You probably wouldn't be surprised to see my life like planned out in Excel sheets, right? But
in colors.
Yeah, with different colors and macros and different tags. But I've learned to come away from that a bit more and just try to be more in the present with like my kids and my family and so on. So that means things like putting the phone aside, right? Taking one actual break like every day of the week, which for me is Sundays, and not doing any work on that day, just so that I can be present.
I love that. Is there something that keeps you awake at night?
My work. Being an entrepreneur, like, in China, they have 996, right?
Yes.
Like 9 hours a day and 6 days a week, those kind of things, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And I think like for most entrepreneurs that I know, it's like 007.
Yeah.
It's like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like sometimes when you get an idea, like in the middle of the night, you wake up, you write it down. Like sometimes when there are some issues at work that's pressing you, it makes it difficult for you to sleep, right? So yeah, in answer to your question, mostly what keeps me awake at night is like work. But I've done a much better job of that now. I'm actually sleeping quite well through the night, tracking my sleep, everything.
If sort of, we were like to take away all the titles and the success and the company and maybe family identity, who is Yuying underneath all of that?
I would say that, Yuying is probably someone who wants to do the best that she can do, like given any sort of like situation or any sort of like circumstances. So when I was doing my MBA course at INSEAD, there was a professor, entrepreneurship professor, who said, guys, if you were to start a company, it's going to be very unlike anything that you have done before. It would strip away that logo that you have, right? Whether it's Baker McKinsey or like IBM or whatever. and people would only see you as a person, right? And then the question is, why would they work with you as a person if you do not have this big brand behind you? And to me, the answer to that is that people have to recognize you for who you are, and they have to trust you before they would work with you. Why would they trust you, right? And I think that for me, myself, like what I hold myself up to a high standard. The way that I deal with people, it's always fair, it's honest. And I think that you can see that also in the company's culture, like how it has evolved in our customer service, how it has evolved in our product, and so on. So there's a lot of transparency, honesty, fairness. We try to do right by our customers and our partners, and we try to be as responsive to them as we can, right? So I think that, at a fundamental level, that is who I am as a person, and that is what I like to think the company has turned out as well.
Wow. You are by birth Singaporean.
Yes.
You're born here, you grew up here. I'm nationalized Singaporean. You probably, when you were born, you never thought you would see, a blonde woman with white skin being a Singaporean. I know lately have been a lot of debates about that. That's what I want to talk about. A lot of debates from Singaporeans like you to with Singaporeans like me. And I'm just curious your personal opinion. There's a lot of conversation about nationalized kind of passport holders, whether they fit or not into the country, what does it mean to Singapore identity.
Singapore has always been a very unique kind of a country to be in, right? I mean, I think that the most unique thing about Singapore is actually the governance of it. And I think that it has one of the very few governments in the world that actually tries to do right by its people. The people governing the country actually has the interest of its people and the country at heart. They may not always express it in the best way, or the way with the greatest EQ. But I believe at a fundamental level, they do have that. What it means to be Singaporeans, I believe, is, there are negative and there are positive aspects of it as well. The negative aspects of it, I believe, are things like we don't break enough rules. It's something that I've seen in citizens of other countries where they go out there and they're like, okay, this is the rule, but maybe we can go about it this way, or why does this rule need to exist? There's a lot of questioning, and I don't think we do that enough here in Singapore. It's something that I'm trying to actively get my kids to do. Like, oh, your teacher said this, so why do you think your teacher is right? You need to learn to question authorities a bit, because if you don't, there is no additional value, right? It's rote learning and doing things in a very methodical, proper way, but then not breaking out of barriers. But I think that the positive aspects about being a Singaporean is trustworthiness, right? So if you were to hire someone from Singapore into a certain position, generally you can trust that they will do their best in the role, and they would hold themselves up to a certain level of standards, ethics, and so on, right? So two different aspects of it. Mutually, I don't know whether they're exclusive or whether you can have one without the other.
And then what about people like me? I'm not saying me specifically, but just nationalized Singaporeans. How do you feel? There's a lot of conversation just about that, because usually often they could be from cultures, as you said, maybe they don't follow the rules that much. They speak
we need
up,
more
they
of that.
question, know. There are some who might not be very trustworthy about things, right? There are, even though they say that ICA really tries to do the checks, and how someone said that if you made it and you got a Singapore passport, you're an A-team, because the Singapore government really checked you, otherwise they wouldn't give it to you, but still you never know, right, with those things.
Yeah.
But to me, definitely I had this experience when I got my passport. I actually received an incredible welcome from Singaporeans, which I was very surprised, because I felt like in any other countries they would say something like, oh, those immigrants, another one, but it was not the case here. But I know that lately it just has been a more sort of private survey, maybe not in your face, but people have been just responding to questions. The survey was going on through the country, and then there's even documentary about Singaporeans being released soon on CNA. And so I'm actually very curious, because they also invited me to be, part there, I guess, Caucasian representation.
Right.
So, and they studied it. That's why I know, because they briefed us about what's happening in the country and what people say. So how do you feel about foreigners who become Singaporeans?
Well, I've been on the other side. Because, when I was staying in Hong Kong, I had like a Hong Kong residence card. If I had stayed on like 1 or 2 years more, I would have become a Hong Kong PR with a card as well and the right to stay there. So I do understand why like locals would feel, threatened by having like more foreigners come in. Like I experienced that on the opposite side in Hong Kong. But what I would say is that I think that people who come to Singapore self-select, right? You wouldn't come to Singapore if like, what you really wanted to do was like having, really fun, like very havoc kind of time. You came to Singapore probably because you were looking for a safe, well-run like environment in which to raise your kids, which also had like good commercial opportunities as well. So I would say that, rather than looking at hair color, skin color, eye color, it is really like a very kind of like common mentality and common kind of like understanding of the values that really brings like Singaporeans together, right? And yeah, that is how I feel. I have plenty of friends like who also became Singaporeans who were not originally from Singapore as well.
And it doesn't bother you at all?
It doesn't. In fact, I have been writing letters for some of them, like, when they're applying for PR or citizenship. And it just befuddles me sometimes why some of them do not get citizenship. I know of some of them who tried multiple times to get PR. Citizenship here didn't get it. And, they left to go to other countries like Canada, Australia, where the citizenship process is a lot more transparent and it's like, it's a lot more procedural as well. Yeah, but they really tried, to become a Singaporean. I feel that we have lost out in terms of talent.
Thank you for sharing that. The final question for today, what does success mean to you at this season of your life?
Okay, so at the start of like every year, I write down like what success would mean to me, like as at the end of the year. So I do have goals that I work for, like whether it's for my personal, goals or whether it's like family goals or whether it is like career goals. So those are like defined and then those are the various goals that I work for. So for instance, like this year, one of my personal goals has been like body recomposition, right? Which is basically like reducing the amount of body fat and increasing the muscle level. So yeah, it's been a goal I'm working towards. I've actually already achieved it like before the end. I have goals of like spending time with my children, and helping them improve in certain areas, which I think by and large, with the exception of my son's spelling, has been achieved. On a career goal as well, like with my company, we have had revenue goals, we have had expansion goals and like partnership goals, processes goals, and those by and large have been fulfilled. I do have those various metrics that I'm constantly adjusting as I go along. I don't want you to feel like I'm some sort of like Excel sheet or like robot, but like that's how I operate.
To me, you have a very big heart for someone who loves Excel spreadsheets. So
Excel's great.
thank you so much, Yuying. Thank you for your brilliance, for your humor, and for your heart that you brought to the conversation today. And to everyone watching, may this be your reminder that behind every woman who leads, there is always a story of becoming, story of trade-offs, late-night doubts, moment of transformation. For some heartbreak, disappointment, maybe not today for Yuying specifically, but most of the time. And that's why YanaTV is here to share those stories. And if this conversation moved you, so please share with another woman who needs to remind her that her story, with all its detours and doubts, still matters in this world. And in the comments, please let me know what does success mean to you today at this season of your life.
Thank you so much, Yana.
Thank you.
If I start crying, like we can wipe.
We
that
could
out.
wipe. I don't think you can start crying, we'll cry, but if you do, we can wipe that.